Good afternoon. I made it. I think the microphone is working. I think this is going live, and yeah, all I can do is think right now. All I can do is hope right now, which isn't where I was planning on going with this live, but being open to whatever wants to come through feels really, really pivotal at the moment. Okay, so I've just realised it is the 1st of November, the November, 1st of November. So we have 111 and it is 1 o'clock. Why does that matter? Wow, I was feeling into the energies and they feel quite intense, scattered, wild. I'm acutely aware that we have a new moon in Scorpio and that I think it was about 10 minutes ago. No, it was 11 minutes ago, of course, as the clock goes 1:01. It was 11 minutes ago at its peak, actually. And it feels very pivotal that it's one thing to know we're feeling something, but also to acknowledge what that means to us individually. There's going to be a lot of energy. I'm just trying to cancel some of the notifications and the distractions coming in, which yeah, there's going to be a lot of energy coming in. There has been, obviously, leading up into Halloween, Samhain, Diwali, the Day of the Dead, which is today. Whatever festival is coming up for you now, whatever ceremony or marked occasion is rising for you now, whatever anniversary, whatever ultimate pinnacle moment of the lessons you have discovered throughout the year is coming up for you right now. Yeah, there's a lot of it. It feels quite intense and it feels almost as if it could be a bit too much. I was talking with some dear friends of mine this morning, and of course when we feel as if something is too much, what we're actually doing is downplaying our ability to cope with whatever is given to us. When we feel as if something is too much, we've lost sight of who we are. So what can we do this weekend to help bring that back? Well, integration is going to be key. There's a lot of energy that is being given to support us. There's a lot of things that we are already doing. There's a lot of shifts that have been made, but until we can see that, until we can integrate that this weekend, it's kind of going to go in one ear and out the other. Heads up for ringing ears this weekend as well. Which is going to take our vibration higher. It's all about lifting our vibration this weekend so that we can see where we actually are. I said in this week's video that even though it's the end of the year, we can get lulled into a false sense of security that we've kind of got through the most pivotal changes this year. However, the biggest change always happens right at the end. That's why it's called transition. So right at that moment of shifting something. So this weekend, don't be surprised if you feel more uncomfortable, or if what you've normally been able to cope with kind of intensifies and it feels a little bit out of our league this last few days, because even though we're in November, it still feels as if October is having a little bit of a lag, and probably will until about the 17th of November, because it's about that Pluto movement as well, that transformation, that death and rebirth that's occurring. However, I don't want this to be a whole astrological report, because I have written a blog about the new moon, and obviously there are the weekly videos, and they're all on the website, and they're all on the Facebook pages, and they're all in the bio. So let's not get too caught up in what has already occurred. Let's not get too distracted. Let's not have our focus taken away too much from what we already know. And that feels like the underlying message this weekend. Having a lot reflected back about what we already know. Why? Because it's one thing to know and it's another thing to believe. We can know that we're ready for something. We can feel it in our core. We can look back and think, oh gosh, I've known that all along, actually, whether that's a relationship. And let's just pause with that. Let's pause and feel into the excitement that can happen when something new starts. You know, if it is a relationship, or if I can't stop smiling with the relationship thing. So yeah, being mindful of that this weekend. Or if it's a job, or, you know, whatever's changing, let's not forget the excitement in the beginning. But also let's not just use that to inspire us, because the initial spark isn't going to be enough to keep the fires burning throughout the next few winter months. So it's going to need a little bit more than that attraction that first started us. Okay, it's going to need a little bit more from us, from the individuals involved, from the circumstances involved, from the actions that are now available. And that's kind of where we're drawing a blank. So let's go into that. It's going to need more. It's going to need an openness. It's going to need a bringing back of all of our distracted energy. That's what I feel. It's almost as if the energy has been shattered and scattered. Shattered and scattered. When a lot of these things happen, when we have a lot of changes, we can almost get what is called a soul loss. Even with the positive changes, we can get aspects of ourselves that react or want to react in a way that we may not feel appropriate, so we can snub that part of us, or we can have such a shock to the system that we almost cut that off until we're ready to deal with it. So this weekend, bringing back those parts of us that we are ready to reincorporate. In the Mexican culture, we have, I think there's 7 days. Please forgive me if I'm quoting this wrong, but 7 days to celebrate our ancestors. And I do believe that today is related to children, and unborn children as well, unborn potential. Feeling into not only the inner child this weekend, but also aspects that perhaps haven't come to fruition in the way that we would have liked. Releasing the dreams that we had hoped for, allowing them to be what they now are so we can receive in something different. One of the things I've noticed in my own personal circumstances the last hour or so is a real ignition in regards to the masculine, a real trust, a real belief, a real sparked faith in the masculine ability within me and around me to drive these huge energies or forces that are coming in. Why is that happening? Because it's about our ability to act on what we feel. How many times do we feel that something is right for us, but we don't act on it? And then when that comes around again, we doubt ourselves, so we don't act. And those not acting moments soon build up, and they become luggage that we're kind of dragging around with us, which makes the initial thing we wanted to do so big. And it isn't that it's got any bigger. That relationship that we want, that job that we want, that money that we want, the security that we want, it isn't that it's got bigger. It's just all the reasons that we haven't achieved it have become more of our focus than that initial spark that said, come on, let's just try this and see where this goes. So this weekend, there's no viewers at the moment, so I'm going to pull a few cards, but then I'm going to call it quits. This weekend, feeling into how can you return back to the initial spark? Not just in external factors, but with yourself. How can you find what inspires you? How can you be your own inspiration and your own muse? For me, sometimes I really forget, especially with the spiritual stuff, it can get really heavy, really heavy. So I will share something that's very tongue-in-cheek, or I will listen to old school, in particular R&B music. For me, that's my thing, and find myself strutting while I'm walking my dog. So what's going to bring that oomph, that life, that spark back to you this weekend? We can celebrate our ancestors. We can feel into what may not have been born the way that we want. We can acknowledge what is now passing, crossing over. We are not supposed to go with it. Okay, so what can we do when we're working with the energy of death? Remembering, like all energy, it's two-sided. So death brings in new beginnings. So it's one thing to release these things. It's one thing to celebrate those that have passed. But what are we going to bring in? How are we going to be the legacy for our ancestors? We talk about ancestral healing, and 9 times out of 10, from what I've seen externally, it normally involves getting rid of things. Oh, you know, my grandmother did this, I don't want to do that. My father was this way, I don't want to do that. But to heal something is to bring it in, to embody it, and to find the medicine within it. How can we take what we have been given, whether we like it or not, and turn it into something that we do like? How can we bring the dead to life in our actions? How can we take those ideas that may have felt as if they were never going to happen and breathe life back into them? Do we want to? That's going to be the key this weekend, really honing in on what we actually want. Being true and being honest to ourselves. One of the things that's come up for me over the last few hours, actually, in preparation for the new moon, is a recognition that there's a lot of games I've been playing that I don't want to be part of, because they're the done thing, particularly when it comes to my own gender and what is expected of the feminine and of spirituality. it doesn't have to fit you. You're not supposed to mold yourself into things because it's more convenient or because everyone else around you is doing it. And we know this, but expect this weekend on another level, a deeper physical integration of that, so that we can believe it. Okay, we know that we're here to be uniquely who we are. We know that that can be very daunting, that that can be very nerve-wracking to stand in that truth, especially when it goes against the grain. However, until we do it, we're not going to really see why it was so important. We can have a few ideas, but we're not going to really see why it was important. So becoming what you've always been this weekend is going to be key. Not for anyone else, for you. To let go of any shame, doubt, guilt, wounding, soul loss that has happened from not being 100% who we are. Let me rephrase that. So we are 100% who we are. Even when we're not being as authentic as we'd like to be, we are being authentic to that moment. So taking off some of that weight, that pressure to be open and raw and real, doing the best that we can. It's not about other people this weekend. It's about being honest with ourselves. We may find that something really calls to us and we feel a bit guilty because it doesn't fit in with a plan with others. Don't jump the gun. Feel into how that seems first. What would it be like to actually put your needs at the center of everything else that's going on around you? How would that feel? And then allowing everything else to do its own thing and slot into place. So, with that in mind, yeah, there's no one on the live. So let's have a couple of cards for this weekend. I can hear, and I'm very, very aware it's related to my mother as well at this time of year, but I can hear Helen Shapiro walking back to happiness. But stepping away from all the things that don't support that first. Eight of Wands. When we take our focus back from the energy that doesn't make us feel good, and let's face it, it can be really that simple. If we're watching something or doing something or thinking about something that makes us feel like shit, if we can take our energy back out of that, and we can do that, we have agency, we are, accountable for where we decide to put our energy. And yes, it can take some doing. We might find that our thoughts have run off somewhere, but once we notice that, bring it back. Instead of the judgment of I shouldn't think that, or I'm thinking that because this person is X, let's stop that. Bring all the energy back. When we do that, we bring back all those soul parts that have been wounded, that may need to be looked at, that may need to be held, that may need to be supported and accepted, and we have alignment. With that comes much swifter movement, and that is available this weekend. Now, this is the third time that it's turned up, so don't be surprised if certain opportunities are a repetition of things that have been going on perhaps for the last 8 weeks, 8 months, or even 8 years. It's all about mastery. It's all about being given a second chance and how we choose to view that. So we may think, oh God, this energy is coming up again. I thought I dealt with this. Or we could allow it to come up and feel into the fact that it's more intense, which means it's more urgent, which means actually this is a real good pivotal point of change and self-mastery. Do we want what that energy is suggesting, or can we just let that idea go? And it does feel very fine, cutthroat almost. Well, we're working with the energy of death at the moment, and death is saying, look, I know you're insecure, or I know you may not feel ready for this, or I know you may have a lot of reasons why now isn't the right time, and da-da-da-da-da. However, this is what I'm offering. Do you want it? If not, I'm moving on. Because the energy is quick as well, and that's demanding that we be in alignment, because from there we can be in our own worth, and the things that we're facing won't feel so much, because we're not carrying all these reasons of why they are too much. Okay. It's exciting, actually. It can be very creatively freeing if we allow it to be, but oh wow, the sacral is going. Yeah, the sacral energy is going. So Finding a way to ground that creativity, not to ground it to get rid of it, but to work with it, flow with it, dance with it, move with it, appreciate it. Imagine a life where we didn't feel that spark. I know sometimes when we get, especially I can relate to this, when we get ideas or we get spiritual suggestions that come in, or I call it itchy feet, but when we get those moments of, oh, actually I'd like to change this, shift this, it can be an inconvenience, especially to our ego. Well, now's not a good time. Now at the moment I'm sorting this out, doing this, doing that. But actually, what does it feel like when we get that spark? Can we allow ourselves this weekend just to let go and to experience the sensation of creativity in its potential? We have the Two of Wands at the bottom of the pack. If we can just be with that, it may not need any actions. Just toy with the idea. Have fun with it. Imagine, goodness me, when was the last time we actually imagined something? It's that childhood thing, right? Imagine. My sister sent me a thing today. Happy first day of Christmas. It's like, I'm very aware that that is what's happening around the world at the moment, and I'm aware that there's financial connotations behind that and big businesses, and it's messing with the seasons and everything else. But actually, sometimes when the energy's heavy, it's kind of nice to feel into that light, and the fact that celebrations are coming and Christmas is coming, and remembering that, imagining what things would be like, allowing our heart to gaze out the window of the situation that we find ourselves in, to look beyond the obvious. So obviously mine here, I can really relate to this, it's a camper van, and it's that travel, imagining what it would be like to go beyond what we know, to go beyond what we've been, to go beyond what is expected of us. Because underneath, we have the Tower card. But of course, if we're to embrace those changes, underneath that we have the Nine of Wands. What are we defending and why? Is it our idea? Is it what we expected or wanted our life to be? Or is it what we've molded into? Are we having to stand our ground, and who with? Really, who are we having to stand our ground with? Why do we feel as if we're having to prove things externally? What part of us internally doesn't quite believe what we're saying? Underneath, it's all about strength, right? It's all about connecting to the divine energy of inspiration and recognizing it for our soul. We see art as painting or drawing or making something, but there's a lot of things about art going on at the moment, and for me art has always been a way to express the soul, whether that's poetry, whether that's reading tarot cards, whether that's cleaning the home, whether that's cooking a meal for your family. The mundane is just as magical, remembering that this week, but also acknowledging that if it doesn't quite feed your soul, how else can you express this wonderful fire and light and creativity that is you? We talk about strength and we think about it in a physical sense, but the strength card is very much about spiritual strength as well. How can we maintain that balance? How can we connect to that higher vision that we're always talking about? Allowing that energy to come down through our body and become something physical and tangible. That could be a poem, that could be a drawing. You could think of your ideal house and draw it. Why do you think vision boards work? They allow us to take an idea and give it physical form. It's why ceremony works. It's why we do altars to our ancestors. They become a focal point. When we pray, when we have our altars, when we do dispatcho, when we do vision boards, when we light a candle, it allows us to have a focal point. So this weekend, taking all these creative ideas and living with them, letting them express themselves through you, give them a focal point. Let that focal point be you. I'm going to leave it there because there's no one that's come in. Have the most wonderful weekend, and I shall see you with Monday's musings. Take care, guys.